It doesn't matter who the coach is, doesn't matter who the quarterback is, doesn't matter who the GM is. The Jets once again show themselves to be a three-ring circus. So yesterday there was a report by The Athletic that Zach was reluctant to start again, even though the Jets wanted to go back to him after the Falcons game. And the report was that he was citing injury concerns and that Rodgers had to talk him out of it. We don't know where those reports came from or even if they're 100% true. Going off of what Aaron Rodgers said today on the Pat McAfee show, he seems to be of the opinion that this is a attempted character assassination on Zach Wilson to either get him cut from the team or traded in some way in the offseason. We really don't know right now what the truth is. What we do know is that Zach must have known that there was word out there that this was happening or that his words were skewed in some way, or if it is true, he said something and it got out. And he went to go sit with Robert Saleh on Monday before his press conference and tell him that he wanted to start, that he wanted to be here. And the press conference that Robert Saleh gave was a little telling. He didn't confirm or deny that anything was said in the locker room between players, but all he did say was that Zach came to me 30 minutes ago, I think was the quote, and he wants to start. Do I think that it was Zach's camp maybe sending this out into the reporters to try and get him in a better situation? I think that's entirely possible. I think it's also entirely possible that maybe a player or two made it up just to try and get Zach off the team, more or less. We don't know, and I don't know if we're going to get to the bottom of it. Then we have the nonsense, absolute nonsense between Robert Saleh and Joe Benigno. So why is a head coach texting, of all people, Joe Benigno? Right? Why on earth would he do something like that? Maybe it's because he's trying to get on the good side of somebody who has the ear of a lot of fans, not mine in particular, but is certainly listened to by a lot of fans, a lot of Jet fans. He's trying to probably get on his good side and trying to make a friend out of him. And by Joe Benigno exposing those private tweets, those private text messages between him and Robert Saleh is completely unprofessional, and it's a reason why a lot of people don't listen to Joe Benigno at this point. Regardless of whether or not it was right for Joe to expose that or release that on a live radio show, Robert Saleh should not in any way be texting information to, of all people, Joe Benigno. I'm sure he has his inner circle of coaches that he talks to privately and talks about what the problems are with the team. But those people cannot be Joe Benigno because, let's face it, Joe is a loose cannon and he acts out of emotion. So that's bad on both parts. There's no reason for Robert Saleh to be texting Joe Benigno, and there's no reason why Joe Benigno should be exposing those text messages. Besides the comment of him saying, of Robert Saleh saying, "Are you kidding me?" as far as putting Zach back in. Apparently that was a misquote or a mischaracterization of what the text was. We all thought that it was Robert Saleh saying, "Are you kidding me? You want me to put Zach Wilson back in?" But it was actually, "Are you kidding me? You wanted him gone 2 weeks ago and now you want him back." So that was the context that we were missing. Either way, it's still wrong. What's more interesting was before that, Joe Benigno said that he had been getting texts from Robert Saleh where he was showing stats of coaches and what their records are with and without their starting quarterback. And why Robert Saleh would feel the need to do that is, again, he's trying to get Joe Benigno on his side. He's hoping Joe Benigno will parrot that sentiment out either on his podcast or on WFAN. Unfortunately, it blew up completely in his face because the idea, the belief now is that Robert Saleh is looking for excuses. And the problem is with that argument is you had your starting quarterback for the first 2 years. You had Zach Wilson. He was your go-to starting quarterback. And unfortunately, you and Joe Douglas messed up the pick. Now, not all the offensive problems are on Zach Wilson, but a good majority of them are on Zach. So you can't say that your record is bad because you don't have your starting quarterback when you chose your starting quarterback your first 2 years to be Zach Wilson. And we can rehash out whether Zach Wilson should be on this team or whether they should have moved out of that second pick back in 2020. But the truth is that Robert Saleh has not done the best job of being the head coach of this team. Period. Stop. Now we get to today, where Tim Boyle, the starter for the last 2 weeks, is now cut by the team, and Brett Rypien from the Seattle Seahawks practice squad has been signed to the team. And I think this is a very damning move from Zach Wilson's perspective. Instead of naming Zach Wilson the starter, which they have to name a starter today, it's Tuesday at the time of this recording. You got to name a starter today so that they get in as much practice as they can before the game on Sunday. But I'm surprised they haven't yet. But instead of naming a starter today, they literally go out and fly another quarterback in from the West Coast. So take that as you will. I think that Robert Saleh never wanted Zach Wilson. I'm pretty sure that's evident at this point with the way that he is treating him at this point. He's benched him 2 years in a row. And again, instead of going back to him, because I think we can agree, even though every quarterback on the team is a practice squad quarterback at this point, he's still the best out of Trevor Siemian and at this point, Brett Rypien. Now, Brett Rypien, he may be a better quarterback than him, but he still needs to know the system. He knows the system a little bit from 2022 being with Nathaniel Hackett last year being with Hackett in Denver. So he does kind of know the system, but the idea that you're going to bring someone in on Tuesday and he's going to be the starter for Sunday, in a system like Hackett's, I don't think it's going to work. So I think it's going to be Trevor Siemian is going to be the starter. I think Zach's going to be the backup, and we're going to have Rypien on the practice squad until he can get up to speed. But honestly, at this point, we have 8 losses. What's the point? We're not making the playoffs. We'd have to run the table, go 9-8, and pray that we back our way in to the 7th seed, which it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And the idea that Rodgers is going to come back and next week and be able to take us on some sort of run like that, I think is foolhardy. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is looking at the situation right now and says, yes, I want to play right now for the New York Jets. I don't see why he would want to, especially behind this offensive line, which granted, they played pretty well against the Falcons, but it is still a liability. And running around back there with one leg is not smart. It just isn't. So it's Tuesday. It is December 5th, and I feel like I tweeted this out. I feel like being a content creator for the Jets is like playing a giant game of whack-a-mole, because you get your thoughts set up on one thing, and then all of a sudden the next day or even hours later something else comes up that you got to talk about, and it's hard to keep up at this point. This team and this fan base goes through more nonsense in a week than other franchises do in an entire season or two. The Jets are not unkillable right? I think we put that to bed. They're dead. They're done. It's the Jet fans that are unkillable because we go through a lot.